everyone, welcome to my channel. My name is Amanda and I am a neurodivergent woman. I have autism, ADHD, aphantasia, which is the inability to visualize in your mind's eye, and a rare memory disorder called SDAM, which stands for severely deficient autobiographical memory, which I don't have first person memories. So today's one of those days where I really wanted to pop on here and do a video, and I have so many topics going in my head and then none at all. So I was like, sometimes when I just turn on the camera and start talking, things flow and I can have really fun videos that way. One of the topics that I do think that I would like to talk about is boundaries. And this is one that is difficult for me because I am 43 years old, and I just realized a couple years ago that I never really learned what a personal boundary was or how to set one for myself. And now I'm even coming to more terms with that, a lot of it growing up was being an undiagnosed autistic woman. That played a lot into it because I spent the majority of my childhood and teen years, young adulthood, people pleasing and just trying to fit in so desperately that setting personal boundaries kind of went against all of this people pleasing. I was so desperate for connection and for friendships that I could never really tell when a personal boundary, something that would make me uncomfortable, was happening. Like I would disassociate, excuse it, those kind of things. Well, I was watching a video the other day where this lady who said that she was an autistic teacher, or she worked with autistic kids. And she said that a lot of times autistic people don't know how to set boundaries, and that it's okay to set the boundaries for the autistic person. And when she said that, it triggered me so much. And I wanted to kind of go in her comment section and rant on her. But I'm glad I took a beat because I realized that she was a young adult, and honestly, she probably wasn't taught how to set boundaries either. Especially because I did leave her a comment kind of explaining my perspective in a very regulated, polite way. I did not rant on her, okay? Because that doesn't usually get anyone anywhere. And I could tell from her answer that she herself has not learned how to set boundaries. And in her video, she gave an example where she said a lot of times autistic people will come up to her, and she said people, but I think she was talking about kids. I think she said she worked with kids. It was a TikTok. It was a short video. Anyway, that autistic people would come up to her and ask her for her address, and that's inappropriate, and that you need to set the boundary for the autistic person. Tell them that they should never ask anyone for their address. And it's a weird example, but that's the one she gave. Anyway, there's a couple things that are wrong about this. Boundaries, because I'm learning about them, are for your personal comfort. Boundaries aren't for making somebody else comfortable. So she obviously is not comfortable giving out her address. And that's what she said in her comment. She's like, when they come up to her and ask her this, she's like deer in headlights and doesn't want to be rude and say no. But see, that's where she needs to set the boundary and say, I'm sorry, I don't give out my address. It's not appropriate to tell somebody else that they can't ask for the address. Because another thing is a lot of times autistic people are actually very literal thinkers. And especially if you tell an autistic child to never ask anybody for their address, they might file that in their brain as a rule. So then, like maybe a friend invites them over for a play date. That's an appropriate time to ask somebody for their address. And if they have a rule running in the background that says it's socially unacceptable to ask people for their address, that's going to conflict and cause a lot more awkwardness and weirdness than if she, instead of try to set a boundary for another person, taught the child how to set boundaries for themselves by modeling how to set a boundary for herself. And that would be like, hey, I don't feel comfortable giving my address out. That's a boundary I have. Now, this is completely 100% separate from teaching a child safety and teaching a child that they should not give out their address to strangers or people without their parents' permission. That's a separate issue, and it's not really a boundary issue. It's a safety issue for a child. And even still, teaching them to distinguish when they should be able to give out an address and when it's not safe to do so. But boundaries protect your comfort, not somebody else's. A boundary is not, you can't talk to me like that, or you can't talk to me about this subject. That you cannot change someone else's behavior with a boundary. Boundaries are things that you can control. So you can say, I don't talk about this subject. That's a boundary to protect myself. And it's not easy. And our society has taught, especially women, not just autistic people, but a lot of women, to not create personal boundaries for themselves. Our society has taught women to put themselves in uncomfortable, compromising positions at the expense of themselves for other people's comfort. And I think the conversation is shifting. I've seen lots of infographics on Instagram and Pinterest talking about how to set healthy boundaries for different types of relationships. And this has been so helpful for my autistic brain, because I do like having social structure and rules and knowing, what is appropriate, and having examples really helps me so that I can see that and apply it to my own life. So it's really interesting. Yeah, this video that I saw, on TikTok, it just really struck a nerve, because I have spent just so much of my life without boundaries and ignoring my boundaries. I mean, I can't even say ignoring them, because I didn't have them to begin with, because I always thought I was just being flexible. Like, it was like I spun it as a positive attribute. I didn't have boundaries because I was flexible. Like, hey, if a friend wanted to stay out late, okay, well, I'm being flexible, even though going out late makes me very uncomfortable. It messes up my routine. But because I wanted to be friends with that person, I might stay out later than I would have wanted to. Luckily for me, I was never one to be like peer pressured with alcohol. I did not drink alcohol until I was 21 years old, and that's another video topic that I was going to go into, but we'll save that for a whole nother video. Again, it was with the rule following. I'm very much a rule follower, but I think because I had that as a societal rule, like, you don't drink alcohol till you're 21. It was easy for me to have that as a boundary. So I really didn't hang out with people who would have offered me alcohol, honestly, because I just didn't have that many friends in high school. But even if they had, I would have been able to rely on the societal boundary of, hey, I'm underage. And even though I know a lot of kids don't use that as a boundary, for me as an autistic person, it would have been a safe way to create a boundary that I wouldn't have been able to create for myself otherwise. And same thing with drugs. Like drugs were a no-no, so like that was just easy for me to never be caught up with. But I do know that a lot of autistic people actually do succumb to like peer pressure around alcohol, smoking, drugs, and all of that because of that inability to set boundaries because they're trying to fit in. This is a common um, autistic experience that I personally never really struggled with. And I'm thankful for that because I've never really had to deal with any kind of addiction problems. But it is and I want to talk about it because it is a very, very real experience for a lot of undiagnosed, high masking autistic people. A lot of high masking autistic people turn to alcohol to ease into social situations um, because they didn't have those boundaries set up for themselves. Anyway, I hope that you enjoyed this video. This is one of my new fidgets that I've been playing with. It's from Specs, non-sponsored, just love them, SPEKS. They are a small company, so I like to support small companies too. And they're magnetic, and you can just kind of manipulate them. I think I've talked about them in a different video. This is just one of my really favorite ones because it's really quiet. It does just a lot, and the silicone has a nice texture, and it's just very manipulative. And I am the kind of person who I realize that magnet fidgets are one of my top fidgets. I love the way they snap together. That tension is very stimmy, brain happy for me. Anyway, I will see y'all on the next video. If y'all have any ideas or questions, drop them down below. And I will talk to y'all soon. Bye, guys.